Welcome people to Arora IAS, yet another discussion on quality of service delivery, which is a topic of probity in governance, chapter 7 of your ethics portion. So let's start the discussion. Before that, you should always try to incorporate these values inside you. That is the main objective of the series also, along with your gaining of tremendous marks potential in the examination. And most importantly, that you try to incorporate all these values, because you are very soon going to become the public servant. So let's begin the discussion on this very good note, auspicious note, that quality of service delivery. What is the quality and what should be the service delivery? So service delivery is nothing but public services you are providing. As a municipal commissioner, what kind of services you need to provide? You need to provide a good sanitation, the good kind of taxing systems, the planning, the non-congestions of roads, and following the building bylaws. Everything all comes under his genre. So what kind of quality he has to incorporate in that service delivery is what we will discuss in this topic. So basically, in all this lecture series, you have to remember this flowchart where it says the stakeholders, contexts, facts and decision makers play an important role in having the choices of actions, alternative actions he can take place in every other case. So these actually form the case studies in your part B of your section of GS paper 4. So let's quickly go into this flowchart where it says that service delivery is nothing but, on the right side you can see, although I am really sorry for the not clarity in the picture, but this is a beautifully pie chart. You can also right away copy down in your answer sheet as well, because the right side, the service delivery, says that availability with the quality of service and the cost of services to the citizens' satisfaction, that is what is ensured. And how is it ensured? With the kind of a leadership qualities that the municipal commissioner possesses, through which the example we were discussing right now. He has to possess the ethics of culture and expectations, which are structures and practices, as well as being accountable through voice, choice, information, representation and responsibility. So this all in all gives you the quality of delivery of public service delivery. So what is the aim of the public service delivery? To provide the cost effective, highest quality services that the private sector is unable to give it up to the society. That is why the public sector will deliver all the necessary public quality of the public delivery systems, right? You understood it, right? The main issue is that, suppose let's for example take another public servant like deputy superintendent of police, deputy DSP. So that person is responsible for the law and order, social order, the kind of traffic or the crime rate should be reduced, the traffic congestion should be not there, and all the well-being. The kind of crime rate should lessen, if the acid attacks are happening in the locality, see to it that it doesn't happen. Make the citizenry aware of all the activities, illegal activities going around them. He needs to even curb the illegal liquor distribution or any kind of chit fund scams going on around you. So all in all, he manages everything. How is he doing it? He's providing some quality of public services through the district magistrate himself is a much more powerful and has a lot of subjects under him, like the subjects of 27 subjects, including the Panchayati Rajas as well as the municipalities, 18 subjects. So this is what the service delivery is about, and what kind of quality he has to have it is deliver a cost effective, highly quality services. The key principles to be involved in this public service delivery quality management is people centeredness. Have people at the center of the mind and then apply all the legislations and the implementation of the policy. Lay down the clear standards, equity, transparency, accountability, integrity. Have fairness in the distribution. It is no more the distribution of quality of the services is no more sense of having a religious biasness or a community biasness or region biased or communalism based or regionalism based. It is purely on the fairness principle with a good behavior, rationality, efficiency, and have a rights kind of a grievance redressal mechanism with a continuous improvement in the system. You have started a pilot project in an area where you are distributing 1 rupee rice according to the government scheme to the poor people below 1 lakh per year annum. Per year annum, whoever salary has per 1 lakh, below 1 lakh, so you're distributing 1 rupee rice to them or 1 rupee wheat for them per kg, right? So in that, you have to apply, you have to see what kind of reactions are coming from the people, or what kind of satisfactions are coming from the people's feedback. You have to incorporate into the main streamlined programs based on your pilot study. This is what you have to have, the continuous improvement in your system may bring about an attitudinal change within you and within the society to avail these services, because people generally in the society, in fact in India itself, all over India, there is a kind of people not coming forward and taking up the government services, because they think that the bureaucratic process is huge. They need to get the Aadhaar and other kind of documents which will be very, very hectic to get, and at a cost of, in a cost effective manner. So for that purpose only, e-governance has rationalized the process of long duration attainment of this public service delivery mechanism. That is where you need to bring about the attitudinal change in the people, like asking them to accept this e-governance e-governance inputs through the e-sevas, or the kind of mechanisms government are placing it various other states even, through which the public will come forward and utilize the public service delivery machines. This all depends upon the kind of leadership and the good value system in the public servant. And then comes the process and structures in any government organization owes to the statutes, rules and regulations. Within that purview only, you are going to deliver a quality and effective and efficient services. Now, service delivery reform will bring what? It will make people's life easier. When a society order is there, when you bring sanitation in an order in a particular wards or a community in a statutory town, let's suppose a statutory town is there, and if suppose the sanitation is being done in a proper way, the cleanliness has been following, what kind of public service delivery it will ensure? It will make the life of the people easier. It will make them less prone to the diseases due to mosquitoes or breeding seasons when lots of rain comes, or during the winter season. It will reduce their hardships so that they can avail to a better services. They can be employed for rest of the year, productive usage of the man hours. So this is how you have to link the concepts and go, rather than just mugging up the topics. Okay, and the other point of service delivery reforms will also bring about a good, better service from the government that will ensure the benefits and the support are entitled to the actual right intended beneficiaries, as well as the trust deficit which is always existing between the government and the people will be lessened. And then comes the service delivery reform, and how do we achieve it? We have talked about it, like it makes easier life for the people to access all the benefits of the programs of the government. But how is it ensured or achieved? It is achieved by making the social inclusion and the workforce participation through initiatives that help the vulnerable people into the community, and community engagement is a main thing through the officers in charge should be ensured, and implementing a customer and need more intensive support by drawing on existing the information on a person's circumstances. Like it's just like a questionnaire or a survey based conditions where you ask people like what kind of services they are intending to, or understand the ground realities of a locality, that suppose they are prone to any kind of bone deformation diseases because of the groundwater quality deterioration. Then make up some water treatment plants in those locations and deliver this water at a very minimal cost to the people. That is how the public service delivery works on. It is with the community needs rather than what you have already prefixed in your mind. Just because you have funds for a kind of Gram Sabha's improvement, that doesn't mean that will come at the cost of the others in essential services. Then you have the three things here that self-managed. People have to independently access them, navigate through the services. That is why one nation, one card principle is coming up. You have the mobility card where you can access all your PDS, all your other documents as well with this one card wherever you move all through the India. So that is one of the legislation for the self-managed principles of quality delivery services. Then assisted through people people at certain times where they're not able to self-manage it, you need to provide the external assistance through them, through the counters available at the government offices, outside the government offices, so that they can come and put out their grievances. Then managed properly. How is it is managed? People who require services will coordinate with all the people, and challenges would be coordinated. Then a customer relationship management is given, and this has been emphasized even with the second ARC recommendation, like what kind of quality in the public service delivery is maintained. It said that basically the ARC recommendation said that you have to adopt a single window approach, reduce the hierarchy, because the bureaucratic processes has to be reduced. Only then people will start accessing the services. That is what it has said. Based on that only, now we have the e-governance concept as well as the other service delivery counters available in various government offices, and most of them has been online, so that you need not always go and pay your heed at the officers in charge. So that's a novel innovation. And then through the second ARC also said that we have to have a system of rewards and incentives for simplification and streamlining the procedures in every other organization as a motivation factor, and we have to thoroughly review and periodically update all the documents, and soft copies hardline also should be made available. And then the permission or licenses are issued to be in a time limit format, so that people will access it in a very early process, rather than see the scheme or the any kind of public service delivery is launched at one point of time, and it takes around 6 to 8 months for people to actually get to know and aware of the scheme or the public service delivery. So that is where it is having a greater barrier for the people to actually access the resources. So the ARC says that you have to keep on updating it, as well as whichever permissions or licenses are issued, time bound limit, if not already given, should be deemed to have been granted if the processing is done same after. And all the ministers and the departments also should simplify the internal procedures. So in a time bound manner, within 1 year, I was just having a talk with one of my friends who is already into services. He says that during his initial years of positioning as a assistant collector in one of the state, he has come across many other mechanisms, like there is a long process. Actually a issue had come up to him where he had to grant the documents just like to some BPL families. The work could be done in within 2 or 3 days of time. It is full-fledged work and can be done in sufficient 2 to 3 days work. But the hierarchical officers and the subordinate officers itself, they say to him that, why are you getting hurry? It's okay. It can be done even after 15 days, and let's take the 15 days time. When he had voiced out, like, why should we take 15 days to get these things done to this BPL family, but nobody paid heed. That is what actually existing in the system. These are points. These might sound very simple and silly for us, but it is actually existing in the system, which is where you have to bring the innovation-led kind of quality services is essential. And what he had done is, so he had started a program in his locality itself, in his office premises, where he has hired for volunteers on contract basis, where the volunteers would be taking up the online complaints of the individuals, so that easy dispersal of the complaints would be done. So these kind of innovation should come up, because there is a lot of funds in your hands. You have a lot of policy making also. Implementation is only in your hand. That is where you have to have this quality of providing the service delivery. It should be innate. Otherwise, the issues will not be solved that easily. So personal experience, I have just added it up because to make you understand that it is actually existing on the ground and how you should be able to deal with it. So that is what one portion of the study is, like quality of delivery of services. Not much into this, but what is a service delivery, what kind of qualities have second ARC recommendations have given, that we have to know. Then comes the utilization of public funds, which is another topic in continuation in the probity in governance portion only. The utilization of public funds is, first of all, is that the state functioning meeting its development of goals, it has some public funds with it that it has to utilize by spending or dispersing on these different sectors, like health is a sector, farmers insurance is another sector, like youth employment unemployment issues is a sector, labor is a sector. So all these issues funds are diverted in every other sector for its developmental goals. So that is where how to utilize these kind of public funds is another issue, because we have been seeing like how the funds of the many schemes have been diverted to other reasons, and the actual intended beneficiaries are not getting it. So what kind of utilization has to take place is what we will be learning through this session. Then he says the fund utilization of public funds are that in a way it should be fair and impartial. Just because you will get to fame if you spend more on farmers farm waivers loans doesn't mean that you compromise their health insurance schemes. So equally you have to give importance to every other sector in your locality as a public servant aspirant. As a public servant, in fact I'm calling you aspirant because now and then like it will try to imbibe in you the qualities that are essential for becoming a public servant. That is the only intention. So let's go into the next point, that well-defined conditions for the participation. It says that will be met that the resources to reduce the resource wasting into other diversion of funds. That is why utilization of public funds plays a very important role. Public finance management is a very weak point in the today's government, is because we don't have the audit mechanisms, proper internal audit or social audit from the external NGOs or the other community-led audit is not happening. That is where we are not understanding how these funds have been utilized properly or not, and whether allocations have been outside the independent scrutiny or just because the politicians' pressure has been taken or influenced for diversion of the funds. We are not aware of it. And then public fund management is nothing but you have to mobilize the resource, very limited resources we have it, and we have to prioritize the functions without getting compromised on the developmental goals, which are budgetary process and efficient management of resources, and having good kind of an exercising a external control. Now what's the external control? Budgetary control is nothing but one, we have that through a money bill when it passes through the Rajya Sabha and you have the opposition party. In the same way, when this utilization of public funds comes into the public servant sphere, we have the CAG working as a regulatory audit and operational audit it does as how the funds have been utilized or not. So the public servant has to be very careful regarding the utilization of the funds. And what about the fund release and utilization? But what is actually happening is what we'll understand. First one is that funds are mechanically released without knowing the actual facts and figures, like which sector needs the actual attention in a state. Not that every state, just to win the politics, it doesn't mean you give farm loan waiver schemes or based on women welfare schemes. We have already seen like how much fund is being lying idle in the Nirbhaya fund with the Ministry of Finance. But why is the not fund utilized? Who is doing the scrutiny? These are all the aspects. These are all the problems in the fund utilization. Then we have the internal audit function is not there, and for checking the misuse there is no proper mechanism within the ministries and state governments. There is no correctness of the data and facts also. The next would be like there is no centralized data also in expenditure, like how are you spending each penny. You have no idea, because in the next budget you're in a hurry to show the previous government's better picture, better image, and continue with the next budget. So that is just leaving the kind of audit mechanism that should be followed for us to understand the better utilization of funds. And then we come to the audit expenditure. Audit expenditure, as all of us know, it is done by the CAG. It does the performance audit as well as the regulatory audit. Regulatory audit is nothing but it assess the funds, whether the money shown in the expenditure is authorized for the purpose for which it has been spent. And performance will be seen. Performance audit is nothing but based on the performance of the schemes or the funds released. Based on that, it is appropriated, like whether the funds have been properly used or not. And how is the parliament going to control over the expenditure? One is PAC committee, we all know. So the money used for legally or not, whether it is authorized or not, distribution of funds was appropriate or not. Estimates committee, where the it estimates like bad budgeting, what is bad budgeting, or excessive funds, if they're lying, it will surrender it. So these kind of functions estimate committees would be doing. And committees on public undertakings, where the public sector companies which comes under the government will be scrutinized and understood how the funds in those sectors have been utilized. So this is one of parliamentary committees. Now let's understand canons of financial propriety. It's nothing but the expenditure, like what are the basic tenets, basic principles to be involved when you see that financial propriety is nothing but you will proportionally use the funds which they have to be intended for. So what are the basic tenets in that? One is that expenditure should not be more than that of the occasion demands. That is a more important thing. Usually that's a common sense point, right? So that is a basic tenet of utilization of funds. The next one is that every officer is expected to have the same vigilance incurred on the public monies as ordinary prudence, which would exercise an expenditure of his own money. So his own money expenditure as well as the public money should be treated as the same way. When you audit yourself, like these monthly expenses, I have paid this much to my rent, I've had this much paid to my water bill, electricity bill, food bill, and then library charge. So how do you audit? The same way, when the public fund is being released for the public service delivery, the same way you need to be auditing and understanding the issue, like own it. Only when you own it, you will feel compassionate that you're not using it properly or using it in excess. You will have a regulatory audit on it. And then the third point is that no authority should exercise its powers of sanctioning expenditure to pass an order which will be directly or indirectly of its own advantage. So sanctioning of expenditure not for the personal interest but the public interest should be at the larger goal. And then the last point is that expenditure from the public monies should not be for a particular section of the particular population. Just because you have mentioned in your manifesto that if I come to power, my caste people would be getting these much funds. All the priests or all the priests in the temples would be getting lots of money through form of pensions and all that. That shouldn't be the case. It has to be equal to everybody, and it should go as per the demands of the society or the place or the location where you're spending the funds. So all in all, the quality of utilization of funds as well as the public delivery services quality has been dealt in this session. So let's keep it short only so that the session will be interesting and something you will go into your brains, so that you will just jot down some points from these issues also. So the next session we'll be continuing with the challenges of corruption. So that is all for this session. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing, comment down below all your queries or which all videos you want me to make for you so that it can enhance your preparation mode. Always go in a steep high mode. Keep learning, keep studying. Jai Hind. Thank you.